Shalom Alechem, we are on page 26 of our books. Last week I told you, without a text, all the history of Baruch Shemo, how the Rosh started this custom, how it didn't catch on by the Yemenites, and how among the Sephardim there's a dispute as to when you say Baruch Shemo, depending on where it is inside of the Tefillah. Let's try to make a dent in this footnote at the bottom of page 26. It's a well-known fact. Shamirat Baruch Hu uVaruch Shemo, that saying Baruch Hu uVaruch Shemo, he calls it a Minhag Yisrael. Now I have to just be clear that when we say Minhag Yisrael, I'm not talking about some Supreme Court which made this Minhag, but it's the practice of many Jewish people. Uminhag ze Yasad Rabbeinu Harosh, and this Minhag was started by the French-German rabbi in Spain, the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher. Vehuva b'Shulchan Aruch, and it is quoted by Maran in his Shulchan Aruch in chapter 124, the laws of the repetition of the Amidah. And we told you last week that placement is very crucial, because does Baruch Hu Shemo need to be said about every blessing, or only every blessing that is similar to the repetition of the Amidah, which doesn't cover you, a blessing that's not really said to cover you? V'hina Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham Katav, page 27 at the top left. The Magen Avraham writes, that it's obvious to him that any place where you're not allowed to speak, in general, you also can't say this minhag of Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. The Pri Megadim writes, even in Pesuke de Zimra, על פי מה שכתבו הריף והראש, שאסור להפסיק בדיבור מתחילת ברוך שאמר עד אחר המידה, based on that which the Rif and the Rosh said, that it is forbidden for a person to speak from the beginning of Baruch She'amar until after the Amidah, it would also be forbidden for a person to say Baruch Hu uVaruch Shemo during any part of the Pesuke de Zimra prayer. וכן כתבו כמה אחרונים, and that's what a number of the אחרונים write. Pri Megadim is a book, a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. It's a very well, very extensively quoted commentary. Also, it's sometimes known Eshel Avraham as another name for it. Ulam behanhagot, I don't know who Hagrav Frankel. Frankel Tehumim, I do know. Al Shulchan Aruch, on the notes of Frankel Tehumim on the Shulchan Aruch, Katav, he writes La'akel b'zeh. Whereas he agrees that you should not say Baruch Hu Shemo, let's say you're in the middle of Ashrei, yeah? Then someone says a blessing, don't say Baruch Hu Shemo. But when you're at the end, hallelujah, now you're the break. Before you say the next paragraph, you should be allowed to say Baruch Hu Shemo at that point. אלא שמדברי האוסרים נראה שטעם הדבר הוא משום שאסור להפסיק בדיבור מתחילת ברוך שאמר, ואפילו בדיבור של מצווה. If you look at those who prohibit saying Baruch Hu Shemo, the reason is because they compare the saying of Baruch Hu Shemo to just general chatter, general talking, and you can't do that here. Even mitzvah talking you can't do in the middle of Pesuke Zimra. שלא התירו דיבור של מצווה אלא בין ישתבח ליוצר. So let's leave announcing pages. Even that, when it's done, is done. Even if it's a violation of halakha, it's done intentionally violating the halakha to help people pray. What are you going to do? Right? כמובן בשולחן ערוך, וכל שאסור להפסיק בדיבור אפילו של מצווה, אין לומר ברוך הוא ושמו. So here, this minhag, it's a very important minhag to say Baruch Hu Shemo. According to these rabbis, though, it's not important enough that you should be allowed to say it in a place where otherwise you can't speak, even for mitzvah purposes. If you can't speak for a mitzvah purpose, certainly you shouldn't be allowed to say Baruch Hu Shemo, which is a later Ashkenazi custom that was adopted. And based on this, based on this logic, really there shouldn't be a difference between the middle of the paragraph or the end of the paragraph. Because you're not allowed to speak between the paragraphs of Pesuke Zimra either. Even with mitzvah speech. ומכאן יש לתמוה על מה שכתב הגאון רבי חיים פלאג'י בספר קו החיים. So now we have to wonder about that which was written by Rabbi Chaim Palaji in his book Kaf HaChaim, whenever you hear the Kaf HaChaim quoted, we're usually not quoting the Kaf HaChaim of Rabbi Chaim Palaji. We're quoting the Kaf HaChaim of Rabbi Yaakov Chaim Sofer of Jerusalem. Rabbi Chaim Palaji was a Chacham who lived in Turkey. And his writings, he has many books. Many of them are out of print. I want to tell you that he wrote upwards of 80 or 90 books. One of the most prolific Sephardic authors of Turkey. His books are game changers, meaning every one of his books that actually was published changed the realm of the study of halakha completely. He was a very well respected authority. But unfortunately, many of his books have not been reprinted. You can get them as PDFs, old cryptic PDFs online, very hard to read. But aside from that, aside from some of his main books, like Kaf Chaim, doesn't seem that somebody yet has taken the work to reprint Rabbi Chaim Palaji. Rabbi Yosef Zernigian and I, we very often like to research things in Rabbi Chaim Palaji and share it with each other. So he writes in his Kaf HaChaim, "Lahatir la'anot Baruch Hu Shemo be'emtza berachot Kriyat Shema," that he says that you can say Baruch Hu Shemo even in the blessings of the Kriyat Shema. We know that Pesuke Zimra, what's more important, the blessings of the Shema or Pesuke Zimra? Of course, the blessings of the Shema. So, if we're saying that by Pesuke Zimra you can't speak, how much more so by the blessings of the Shema you shouldn't be able to speak? So it's a little bit of a wonder how Rabbi Chaim Palaji could say such a thing. And he writes here something fascinating, because if I would write it, they would burn my books. He says, he exaggerated too much in our opinion. He doesn't say in our opinion. He just says, Rabbi Chaim Palaji exaggerated too much. Rabbanei Devar, are you there? She might be working. I have a brother-in-law that whenever I say something too sharp about some rabbi, you can't speak that way about rabbis. But here it's okay. V'ikar k'divrei kol acharonim hanal lachmir b'zeh afilu Pesuke Zimra v'chol sheken b'kirat Shema u'v'chotea. So here you see that even though there are some rabbis who say you can answer Baruch Hu Shemo in certain parts of the tefillah, it makes more sense that Baruch Hu Shemo, being that it's such a late minhag, shouldn't be allowed to interrupt really many parts of tefillah. Let's do one more paragraph. ומכל מקום, nonetheless, נראה שבין ישתבח ליוצר יש להקל בזה. Between yishtabach and yotzer, where is between yishtabach and yotzer? What's after yishtabach? After yishtabach. The blessings before the Shema. So basically, after Pesuke Zimra, but before the blessings of the Shema, it's kind of a convenient break place. We don't interrupt there with speech, but maybe he says here, you can be lenient. The Hagot Maimoni writes in the name of the Jerusalem Talmud, that someone who speaks between Yishtabach and Yotzer, it's an Avera. How much of an Avera? We said this before. We say that a soldier returns from war for many reasons. If he got married in the last year, if he built a house. One of the things, if he's a person who does Averot, the Talmud Yerushalmi says, which kind of Avera? Somebody who speaks between Yishtabach and Yotzer, he should already come back from war. That's how much of an Avera it is. By the way, all of those people who speak in the Beit Knesset, maybe that's the reason why they don't go to the army, because practically they're not allowed to. I'm going to judge them favorably. ומכל מקום, כתב הטור בשם רבי רב עמרם גאון, שמותר להפסיק בנשתבח יוצר לצורכי ציבור או לצורך מתן צדקה. The Tur quotes Rav Amram Gaon. Rav Amram Gaon says that you're allowed to interrupt between Yishtabach and Yotzer for anything that the community needs, like announcing page numbers or giving tzedakah. Right? Announcing those things there is important. V'chen pasak b'Shulchan Aruch, and that's also what the Shulchan Aruch writes, b'Zohar Lashon. Ha-mesaper ben Yishtabach liYotzer avera hi biyado, v'chozer aleha me'ochei ha-milchama. Maran says that a person is forbidden to speak between Pesuke Zimra and the blessings of Shema, and he would come back from war if he did. V'yesh mishomer, and there is one who says, Shel tzorchei tzibur o lifsok tzedakah lemi sheba litparnes min tzedakah mutar lafsik, that it is permissible to interrupt for a matter of a communal need or for a person who's coming to get tzedakah. וכתב על זה הרמה בהגה, and the Rama comments in his notes on the Shulchan Aruch, ומזה נתפשט המנהג בהרבה מקומות לברך חולה, או לקבול בבית הכנסת שיעשו לו דין בין ישתבח ליוצר, דכל זה מקרה לצורך מצווה. And that's why in Ashkenaz it became the custom to bless the sick between Yishtabach and Yotzer. I know of no Ashkenazi community that does that. Right? Or other such matters like coming to the Bedin or those things in this period, that became an Ashkenazi custom. וכן פסק בשו"ת מרשה, the מרשה is the same thing, וטעם זה כתב הרמה בהגה, שנהגו שהשליח ציבור מעריך בברכו, והקהל מתברך וישתבח, ואין כתב רבי נהרי בשאר הכוונות. And you'll notice there are all kinds of additions that people say during Baruch Hashem Mevorach. There's a little paragraph, Yishtabach, Vitpa'ah, sometimes you see the Ashkenazi Sidurim. That's a Kabbalistic prayer from the Arizal. How can you say it there? Because it's like other things that are needed for the community to be done, you can do them in this break between Pesuke Dizma and Yishtabach. Well, based on this, that you can bless the sick, that you can announce page numbers, that you can say something from the Arizal, so how could Baruch Hu Shemo be any worse than announcing page numbers? So it seems that at this break, he says, you would be allowed to say Baruch Hu Shemo. On page 28 in the right column, V'hu begeder dibur shel mitzvah, it's considered mitzvah speech. ובספר תהילה לדוד, in the book תהילה לדוד, כתב ללמוד מדברי המגן אברהם. He infers from the words of the Magen Avraham. V'agaon Rabbi Zalman. Who's the Gaon Rabbi Zalman? Somebody help me out. Yeah, he's talking about Chabad. Who's the Gaon Rabbi Zalman? Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, wrote a Shulchan Aruch. The Sephardim quote him extensively. The Ben Ish Chai, they always call him Hagaon Rabbi Zalman, and they never write Shneur Zalman. The reason for that is in Sephardic literature, when you abbreviate the name Shneur Zalman, you write Shin and Zayin. Shin and Zayin in Kabbalistic literature refers to a nocturnal emission that a man would have, that the Torah talks about, and they don't wish to seem like they're disrespecting the first Lubavitch Rebbe by calling him that when they abbreviate their writing. And so because of that, they just choose to call him Hagaon Rabbi Zalman. That's what they call him. They add a title, but they take away a name. Yeah, it's considered Sephardic Derech Eretz, if you would think about it that way. She'af ben yishtabach liyotzer asur lanu Baruch Shemo. Both the Magen Avraham and the first Lubavitcher Rebbe are of the opinion that it's forbidden to say Baruch Hu Shemo between Pesuke Zva and the blessings of Shema. V'katav hazeh v'tzir chiyun ki lama yigra midbar v'shtabach. But he writes, but I'm not really sure, because why is it any worse than any of the other things that you're allowed to say between Pesuke Dizimah and the blessings of the Shema? Ulefi ha'amur, based on what's said above, יש לומר שאף המגן אברהם והגאון רבי זלמן לא כתבו כן אלא עניין מקום שאסור לדבר אף דיבור של מצווה, אבל בין ישתבח ליוצר דשארי דיבור של מצווה שפיר ישקף לנהל ברוך שמו, כי he tries to push them into a box and say that they would agree that you can say ברוך שמו, ואין לכחד כי גדולי הדור האחרון נחלקו בדין זה, and there's nothing to hide that the last generation of rabbis fought about this a lot. אולם לעניין הלכה נראה שעיקר כדברי המקילים בזה בין ישתבח ליוצר, and it seems like the minhag is to be lenient about this. Tell me now, the 10 days of Teshuvah are coming. There is something that is added, right, the end is near. There is something that is added into the tefillah, at least by Sephardim. It's added between Yishtabach and Yotzer. Yeah, very good. Which thing? Shir HaMa'alot Mima'amakim Kiraticha Adonai. That comes from the Arizal. Yeah. And so the Arizal's Kabbalistic prayer is said. Yeah, it's said throughout the whole season. How is that not an interruption between Pesuke Zman and Birkat Kachma? Because there are things you're allowed to say there. And what he's trying to say is, even though others would be strict, but at the end of the day, if you can say those things, then really you should be able to say a lot of things when it comes to that break between Yotzeo and Yishtabach. So, for example, let's say a person doesn't have their talit and tefillin. And so they send a text message to their wife, hey, can you please drop off my talit and tefillin? I came to the Beit HaKnesset, I didn't have my talit and tefillin. So she comes and brings you your talit and tefillin. Now you're in the middle of Ashrei Yoshua Vetecha. When should you put on your talit and tefillin? According to many poskim, you're not going to wait till the end of tefillah. Because the end of tefillah, it's too late. You're not going to interrupt there because now you're in the middle of praying. So many poskim suggest that you should interrupt between Yishtabach and Yotzeo, right there before Baruch, stop, put on your talit and tefillin with blessings, and then continue. And there are some who don't want you to do that, because saying a blessing can be an interruption between the two. They tell you to put it on there without a blessing, and then after tefillah, you should knock your tefillin to the wrong place, and then put it back with a blessing. Listen, either you say blessings or you don't say blessings. The mitzvah is fulfilled with a blessing or without a blessing. But I'm not arguing with the poskim. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, you could stop there and say a blessing, or not say a blessing at all. But don't play games later with knocking your tefillin off. But just do things in a normal fashion. Okay. At this point in time, I will stop for any questions or comments you might have.